Today we're going to be talking about solving literal equations. First, let's talk about what a literal equation is. A literal equation is an equation with several variables or letters, and you're going to be asked to solve that equation for one of the variables. So the steps to solve literal equations are first to identify the variable that you want to solve for, the one that we want to isolate or get alone, and in most of the problems we do right now, that variable is going to be y. Then you're going to use inverse operations to isolate that variable, and just for information, usually it's not possible to combine like terms. So let's look at example 1. We're told to solve for y in each equation below. So let's find y. Here's y, so we need to find the operations on this side of the equation and do the inverse of those operations. So first we have a positive x. So the opposite of a positive 1x is a negative 1x. So we're going to subtract 1x from both sides. Now notice how I did not put the negative 1x underneath the negative 20. Why would I put it beside it instead of underneath it? Well, it's because negative 20 and negative 1x are not like terms, so I cannot combine them. So I'm just going to write them next to each other. Okay, so let's simplify this side of the equation. We have 4y equals negative 20 minus 1x. Now we have 4 multiplied by y, and the inverse of that would be to divide by 4. And we need to divide everything on this side of the equation by 4. So I'm basically just going to do it to this term and to that term. Okay, so now let's simplify again. The 4's cancel, and we're left with y. Now let's simplify this side of the equation. Negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. The fraction 1/4 is already simplified, so I can just write minus 1/4 x. So we kind of just changed how this term looked a little bit. We wrote the negative 1/4 in front of the x instead of combining the x into the fraction, but they both mean the same thing. All right, let's look at example 2. So again, we're being asked to solve for y. So we need to do the inverse of each of the operations. So the first thing we're going to do is deal with the term that does not have the y in it. So that would be positive 6x. The opposite of that is negative 6x. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Again, I'm going to put it next to the 10 instead of underneath the 10 because it's not a like term. 2y equals 10 minus 6x. Now we need to divide both sides by 2. So I'm going to divide each of the terms on the right by 2. My 2's cancel out, and I get y equals, let's see if we can simplify a bit. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So that simplifies to y equals 5 minus 3x. Okay, pause the video and do example 3 on your own. Then press play and check your work. Okay, first step is going to be to subtract 4x from both sides. That gives us negative 3y. Oops, what mistake did I make? Did you catch my mistake? I need to put that negative 4x next to the 6 because 6 and negative 4x cannot be combined. They're not like terms. Now to cancel out the negative 3, we need to divide both sides by negative 3. So dividing each term here by a negative 3. That gives us y equals, again we need to see if we can simplify. 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 3 would give us a positive 4 over 3x. And you're going to want to leave the coefficient, the number on x, in fraction form, because later on we'll be using this type of equation to graph lines, and it'll be very important at that point to have the coefficient of x in fraction form. Okay, one last example. Again, pause the video and try this example on your own. Notice that there are two terms that you're going to have to do the inverse of to move over to the other side. That's the negative x and the negative 10. So this one will have one more step. Go ahead and try it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is do the opposite of negative x, which is to add x to both sides. So that gives me negative 2y minus 10 equals 0 plus x. When we add 0 to anything, it just equals 0. So it just equals that number. So we can just write x here. Now we need to cancel out the negative 10 by adding 10 to both sides. So negative 2y equals x plus 10. Now I need to divide both sides by negative 2. I'll do it to each term on this side. And now let's simplify. Okay, x over divided by negative 2. That's the same as saying multiply x by negative 1/2. So we can just rewrite x over negative 2 as negative 1/2 x. 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Okay, short video for today. See you tomorrow in class.